Hey everyone, welcome to Hollywood Hills once again as we are smashing through the gearbox in this final quarter of the championship. I absolutely cannot believe that we are so close to the end of 2021. It's been a wild ride, it certainly has. So last weekend, we want to thank you guys for having the patience with us. We put you guys into a holding pattern so we could have the first week to get the first edit of 3 coming out of round number 5 of the GXCCs. I've now had, I think, 25 showers to get the dust off me from the Delmas round. But in all honesty, it did go well. It was a brilliant race. Everyone had good feedback. No one took massive chances in the dust. And remember, dust is a part of cross-country and off-road racing. You either can make it through and take the chance and sometimes pay the price, or you back it down and you make the overtake in a clean spot. And that's kind of what happened on the day as well. This is going to be the show where we focus in on the juniors and the quads. A lot of these championships getting blown wide open, especially the quads. So watch out for some of the big stories coming out of Delmas as we get ourselves ready to go forward into the final 2 rounds of the GXCCs. This is the juniors and the quads from Delmas, round number 5 of the GXCCs. This GXCC racing action powered by Dunlop is brought to you by SPX Logistics, Dunlop, RME Bearings and Transmission, and driven by Bikers Warehouse. Round 5 of the GXCCs is here. It's the classic race venue of Delmas. Last year, it was our final round. It was a quagmire. Now it's Dust Bowl racing, just coming out the end of winter. We're going to be opening up things here with show number 1. It's all about the juniors and the quads, and everyone is biting their fingernails because the championships are getting banger tight. The quad classes would open up the racing procedure at round number 5 at Delmas with the Q1s, the 450 Premier class going out of the gate. John Elwood still chasing down his first GXCC win. He's been so close on so many occasions. He got a nose ahead on Moto Cartel, and by the time we got to the end of the start queue, it was the championship points leader, Henny McCow Jr. He is trying to run and hide off into the distance ahead of his closest rival, Keenan Hammond. Hammond got stuck off the line, and he would only be able to jump up into 4th place towards the end of the start queue and then make a quick pass on Sonicus to get himself up there to challenge for a top 3. Dust, though, was a major issue off the start line. In the Q2s, Janeman Besadenhout almost got his second ever whole shot of GXCC racing, and he was just beaten by a nose by the returning multiple quad champion, Hannes Simon. CD Hussen was doing a championship chase though. He was sitting in the 3rd spot, keeping everything alive at the moment. The most important thing for CD was to stay ahead of Rian Dick and ahead of the informed David Stratum. Back on the gate, it was all about the quad masters. Philip Boyce was back on bike number 1. The factory KTM was looking good, but it was all about his closest rival, Cobus Ferreira. This was a good track for him. This was going to be on the 700cc Raptor, and he should be able to run very fast pace. The championship rivals for the first time on the season were going to be going at it, hammer and tongs, first and second off the gate, with Cricker, one of the stock riders, doing an incredible job to come off the gate in third and put dust into the face of his closest rivals. Cricker is in a strong position inside the top 4 for the championship as well. Onto the line, and it was the whole shot king once again, Peter Goosen, riding out of SPX Logistics and on the big Can-Am 1000cc. He absolutely roosted his competition all the way through Moto Cartel and Barnard Vervoer, the whole shot scenario, putting dust into the face of Pete Swanepoel, who had one of his best gates ever, sitting in an early number 2 spot, trying to keep Francois Berger, the man who has a stranglehold on this championship, off the back wheel. Nico Smits was in an early 3rd place, and Francois was going to have to do the chase down. For the ladies' championship, we had 2 of the big Can-Ams going out of the gate, and it was the stalwart of the sport, Liesl Barnard, the championship points leader, who saw clear air, but she was going to have to fight hard because she had a very in-form Celeste Berger and Shannon Shape, who showed good form at the previous round, were going to be doing the chase down as well. 5 ladies going out into the dust on the big 49K, and that would be the course full on the big loop before we turned our attention to the juniors. Junior Gate was going to be stacked in a different scenario this time around. As with the Modi Molly event just a couple of rounds ago, the junior national riders competed on the same course as the GXCC, regional and club races. The first 2 gates would be our national competitors, with a lot of familiar names going out as well, trying to see some advantage of clear air in the morning. The 85 nationals were gate drop number 1. As he has done so many times on the GXCCs, it was Tommy Scales that got the big hole shot, but he had a championship rival not only on the GXCCs but on the nationals as well, Kobus Bester, who got a sweet spot hook-up line on the inside rut coming out of Moto Cartel, and it would be Bester that would lead the charge out into the dust. Tommy Scales knew he was in a fight this time around, sucking dust early on. Second gate would be our 65cc national competitors, combined with a couple of regional and clubbies as well. Jaden Als got a nose out front, but it was Justin Rom on the 220 that also showed very strong form coming out of Moto Cartel and Barnard Vervoer. The 65ccs would be chasing down and would have a relatively good dust gap, with the 85s going out just over a minute before them. This was on the junior 15-kilometer run. With the 2 national gates out of the way, we'd be able to focus back into the normal scenario on the GXCCs, with the senior 85s going out of the queue. Combrink, who sits very strong in the championship inside of the top 3, got the cheese. He would be chased down in the early running by Blake. Combrink, one of the riders about to break out into the full senior category. He's trying to get as best as he can, as high up as the rankings as he dare, before he jumps up onto the 125s in 2022. For the junior 85s, it was Vans Racing hookup signing on the mid-season, Mitch Fallon, who ran clear air, and he had a strong advantage going out of the start line queue, leaving the rest in his dust. He had an elbows-up fight on the queue, but also in the championship, Bruno Niebuhr was out there already on the track and running up against the ticking clock for the championship on that gate. The 65ccs, it was all about GJ Kutsia getting a strong hole shot, one of his rare hole shots coming out of the 2021 championship. Himself and Werner Kleinams were going to have a ding-dong dice the whole way through the early laps until the race started to settle itself down. The kids were on for a 6-lapper, super busy race. On the 50cc gate, it was a brand new kid coming off the hole shot, Lo Lombard, getting the cheese this time around and beating the hole shot machine that is Jean-Luc van der Westhuizen. Derek Milan and Wilco Deploy were along for the ride as always, and those are the 3 kids locked in a championship battle. With 3 rounds remaining, Jean-Luc made a nice early pass, as did Milan and Deploy. And going out of the start line queue, it was the top 3 runners in the championship, elbows up for 6 laps to go. This is what course director Vian Duplessis had to say about the junior route.
Vian, it's looking all good to go now that we're in the second reboot of the GXCCs. Talk to me about the junior route. Looks like it's going to be a nice flow.
Yeah, it's a complete new route for them. Last year we were on the other side of the mine road, so complete new route for them. The first section and the last section coming in and out of the pits are going to be fast because we've got open flatland mealie fields here, but just to get them out, and then they're going to play all along the river, and it's a really nice route for them.
In the 50cc championship, John Luke is the man to beat at the moment, but 6th place this time around because of one thing. He was leading on lap number 1, he is leading on lap number 2. Until this. Came in too hot on a triple caution, didn't roll off, but he did spaghetti his throttle, and that was the end of his race. He did enough though, with the 2 laps scored, to get points for 6th place. Derek Milan also had some issues on the day and wouldn't have been happy with the number 5 spot, but he also got some points on the plate. Molly Labuskakny, who has been a revelation this season, one of our top girls coming out of the 50s and definitely going to be moving up into the 65s for next season. Lo Lombard, who had a little bit of clear air for around about 10 seconds in the morning, coming off a first hole shot, dropped down to a 3rd eventually, with Declan Richards also starting to climb the ladder. Very strong form coming out of Richards in the second half of the GXCC Championship, and a high number 2 spot will get him in the zone going forward for the final 2 events. The momentum in the second half of the championship, though, has been all about Wilco Deploy. The J158, who is also making the big move up into the 65s going forward into 2022, got another win on the bounce and will tighten things up in the championship. Here's confirmation of the top 650s then, with Van der Vesthuizen down in 6th. He's going to be hanging on by the skin of his teeth for this championship. Derek Milan, Labuskakny, Lombard, Richards, and another win for Deploy. 65cc gate is always wild, and remember, we had a couple of regional and club races going out on the national gate, but obviously their times were tallied and they scored against their GXCC rivals. Justin Rom, who doesn't have a lot of experience racing the flatland sections, got into a number 6, so it's not a bad ride for a normal rock hopper. JG Kutsia, who saw clear air coming out of his GXCC gate, could do no better than number 5, but 5 will also improve his championship standings. For Rubine Racing, Werner Kleinams got himself up into a number 4. He had a very strong ride, consistent, actually got his fastest lap on the last lap of his event as well, so he is also a rider coming into strong form. Coming into this round, 2nd place on the championship hook for Mackenzie Bam. She's going to be in a fight for the rest of the season with her closest rival on paper and on track, and that's going to be Hanyu de Kock. A 3rd place this time around for Mackenzie Bam keeps her inside that top 3, but it is starting to look like a 3rd place in the championship is on the cards, unless she can hunt down those very rare wins on the 65cc gate. Hanyu de Kock, who took the first win of the championship season. Since then, it's been number 2s and number 3s. Another number 2 spot cements him as the 2nd place runner in the championship, as he also looks to move up into the 85s for next season. Hanyu has been rock solid in his final year on the 65cc gate. But it's Jaden Els, who has seen the checkers more than anyone else out there. Doesn't seem to have a fault. He runs perfect pace on every single track we have gone to. And Delmas was no different. Got some good runs going, was in the dust from lap number 2, but once again he saw the checkers and ran away with a clean, rock-solid win. Confirmation of Els running the numbers ahead of de Kock and Bam. Those were the players inside the top 3. Kleinams, Kutsia and Rom just rounding out the top 6. And then Van Skalkwyk, Meyer, Skippers and Boddington taking us down the queue to a number 10. For the Junior 85s, it was busy times. Coming off his GXCC gate, the J177 of John Bart Moritz did a good run of the day as well, rounding out a top 6. He is now running top 6s at every single event we go to, and his points are going to maybe see him challenge for a top 5 as well. The famous 400 of Franco Ferri got himself up there inside of a number 5. He has been amazing on the championship chase as well, although he would like to see himself sitting inside the top 3 a little bit more often. This was a little bit of a big track for one of the smallest dudes off the Junior 85 gate. From the smallest dude to the biggest dude, the J405 of Luke Battersby, who absolutely dwarfs his Junior 85s. Very young, but a big dude, following in the footsteps of riders such as Wade Young. He's going to age out and size out of the bike. Right now, he's running 4th at the moment and trying to chase down a top 3 in the Northern Regions Championship. Mitch Fallon, who came off the gate in a whole shot queue and did run clear air off his gate. The only riders up the road from him were the riders that ran off the national gate. Mitch Fallon on the C140 Vans Racing Husky is in good hook, and he's looking for a top 2 to round out his championship chase. The championship is all about Bruno Niebuhr trying to defend, because the early running was all about him getting all of the wins in the first half of the season. Since then, it's been a uncustomary number 2 position for Bruno riding out of Rubine Racing, because 2021 has been the comeback season and the shine out for Brandon Clark. Clarkie on the J409 eventually got clear air coming off the national gate and never looked back. He's taken a couple of checkers now at the second half of the season. He's looking strong in the national championship, and he is now closing things down hard on the GXCC hook as well. The fight is going to be Clarkie and Bruno for the rest of the 2 rounds of racing. Clarkie on top then, ahead of Niebuhr, with Fallon, Battersby, Fourie and Maritz taking us to a 6, and Language, Jans van Rensburg, Viljoen and Lawrence inside of a top 10. Final gate and final review from round number 6 of our juniors, all about the senior 85s. Timmy Blake, who came off his gate in the number 2 spot, had to drop down a little bit because there was a ton of national competitors ahead of him. Timmy Blake walking away with number 6 and will stay challenging for a top 5 in the championship. Lohan LaRue also looking to possibly age out. I think he may have one more season on the 85s before he also progresses up into the 125s. He'll be happy with a number 5 spot coming out of that round. Chandre Vermaak, who has been so close to the top 3s every single time. If you look back, he is climbing the ladder. He started the season outside of the top 6. He is now a constant runner inside the top 6 and walks away with one of his highest finishes of the season with a sweet spot number 4. Third place after his impressive hole shot coming out of the GXCC start line hole shot queue. Dwayne Combrink, too tall, waiting for his 125 to arrive coming out of Santa's sleigh in December. But right now, he has to hang on to the 85 and try and defend that number 3 spot in the championship. Up the road, it is the big pinners coming out of the GXCC Club, Regional and Nationals. The almost unstoppable Tommy Scales. But the early season was about Scales. The second half of the season has been about the dice between Tommy Scales and Bester. Right now, this time around, Scales could not get the job done and had to settle for the 2 spot. Bester is starting to grow in confidence, and once he got his nose ahead on lap number 1, the J212 simply never looked back. The championship is now tightening up big time with just 2 rounds remaining coming out of Delmas. Who is it going to be? Bester or Tommy the Gun? Bester on top this time around ahead of Scales and Combrink. That's going to be the dice for the championship going forward for Mark, LaRue, Blake, Hutting, McKenny, Boyce and Luck. The pinners in the top 10ers. That's a wrap of the juniors as we get ready for their final 2 rounds. But let's turn our attention to the big track and the quaddies.
Vian, quad loop in the morning. Obviously, it's nice and clear. There's not too much wind, but tell me about the big 50.
Yeah, it's just short of 50. It's 49 Ks. We had to cut out one small piece, but the first section out, it's going to be windy, and then they're going to hit some really fast stuff in the first couple of Ks. Big, nice river crossing for them. Lots of twists and turns all along the river. And this last section coming back is going to be pinned. I think it's going to be a fast route. Bit of bumps in between. That's going to keep them busy and probably going to make them tired. So, but they're going to have a lot of fun out there. Lots of sweeping fast turns.
You think it's going to be an open quad track, or the 450s? The handling going to be better, or the top speeds?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think the faster bikes are obviously going to have an advantage today, the bigger bikes. There are sections that are fast, and I think they're going to take advantage of it. Even the turns are sweeping turns. It's not tight and twisty turns. So I think they're going to have an advantage with a faster bike today.
The swollen rivers and mud from last year were gone and replaced with dust and rocks. The ever-consistent, affable and ever-smiling Judith Crooker tippy-toed her way through the tech sections and did what she could on her stock standard machine to hang tough. 4th place will see her still take a ton of championship points. It was a rough day at the office and a low finish by her own high standards for championship points leader Liesl Barnard. She battled with the conditions and the pace of the rest of the ladies. 3rd place this time around for the unstoppable Can-Am. Up the road from her was her championship rival and her closest runner on the numbers, Celeste Berger. Berger also running a fairly stock standard bike, so on the high speed stuff, she simply had to do what she could, and on the slow speed rocky stuff, sometimes it was a challenge. But she did what she had to survive the day's racing. 4 big laps on the cards for the girls, and Berger, 2nd place, will see her improve in the championship points. For the last couple of rounds, we've been getting used to the name of Shannon Shape. She is a standout rider and one of only 2 riders coming out of the big Can-Ams riding the Renegade 1000cc machines. This track was custom made for Shape, and she made the perfect run on the machine, dominating the rock sections and dropping the hammer on the high speeds to see the big checkers at Delmas. In the quad veterans, there was a high attrition rate, unfortunately. Davy de Vet only managing to complete the first lap. Nico Smit also having a big crash on lap number 1, and that left the players in the championship to do the dicing out there on the track. The big hole shot once again was Peter Gerson, and he dropped down to 3rd place, but that'll keep him in the 3rd place hunt for the championship as well. A tough, hard day at the office. Some sections for the quads must have felt like the roof of Africa, but the rest of the high-speed flowing sections would have been an absolute pleasure. Peter Gerson for the SPX squad is in great shape. Francois Berger, who is the championship points leader, also had a big crash, but he did enough to bring it home to the finish line. It's not going to be a golden season or a golden championship, as we like to call it, where a rider goes undefeated. Francois Berger records his lowest finish of the championship so far, with the 2nd place coming out of Delmas, but will remain as championship points leader. In 2021, with the inaugural running of the Veterans Quad Championship, everyone is trying to get their name at the top of the pile. Only 1 or 2 riders have actually taken wins so far this season, and one of those riders is Pete Swanepoel. Swanepoel does find the tougher the tracks, the better he runs, and he took his first win of the season at round number 2 at Modi Molly. That was a very tough event, and in some ways had a very similar look and feel to Delmas. Less rivers, but plenty of dust and scrubland to try and muscle the bike around. Delmas records a 2nd win and sees Swanepoel improving in his hunt for the championship. Here's confirmation of Swanepoel on top in the veterans ahead of Berger, Gerson, Smit and de Vet. With the quad ladies, Shannon Shape shaping up nicely to put one over on Berger, Barnard and Crooker. In the Quad Masters, it is a crazy wild championship inside the top 3, and also the battle to break your way inside of a top 4. There is about 4 dudes out there running numbers that could see them climb the ladder very quickly. The DeSanti were in the house throwing the numbers once again. Fernando de Santos bowing out early in the race. He recorded a number 7 finish, with Roxy de Santos completing the race, but only down in a number 6. Choosing to go for the LTR this time around. Normally, the DeSanti running the big 700s. Strange approach to how to figure out what to run and how to set up the bikes for Delmas. Tricky and technical in very small sections, and the rest was high speed running. Henning Pretorius records one of his highest finishes ever with a number 5 run. And Xander Branken on the Can-Am got himself up there into a number 4 spot. Seemed to have a difficult ride of the day. He has had some mechanical issues that have held him back from the championship. And coming into the 2021 tour, he was one of the names on the page that was a massive threat. But inconsistency and mechanical issues have seen him drop out of the chase for the top 2. He could still challenge though for a top 3 on the numbers. Back on bike number 1, but unfortunately a late race mechanical, dropping Philip Boyce out of the race lead, but he did enough laps to score his way through into a number 3 ride. The championship fight is now truly on. The last couple of rounds has been all about Philip Boyce since he got back onto the KTM with the early season running going to his closest rival, Cobus Ferreira. Third place this time around to Boyce brings that championship fight even closer with 2 rounds to go. The winningest rider in the first half of the season, choosing to swing a leg off his LTR and onto the big 700 Raptor, Cobus Ferreira had a rough and tough day. He definitely had mechanical issues. The bike kept stalling out. He had overheating problems, but he still got the bike on the L52 up into a number 2 spot, and that could be the deciding factor to keep the championship alive. So with our 2 championship rivals running 2 and 3, it means we welcome a new rider to the top step. Seems to be the theme of the Delmas event. In the Quad Masters, Jaco Krikke, who came out of the gate in the 3rd spot, played the long game. Didn't take any chances in the tech, saved his machine in the high speed, had a perfect fueling strategy for the pit stops, and the C256 of Jaco Krikke on the most stock bike coming off the Quad Masters gate sees the checkers for the first time. Welcome to the top step, and congrats on your first GXCC win, Jaco Krikke. Here's confirmation of Krikke then on the top step. He'll be happy to see that, keeping his championship rivals Ferreira and Boyce down in the 2s and 3s, with Branken, Pretorius, and the DeSanti in the 6 and 7. Into the big dogs now, and they don't come bigger than the Q2s. This track was going to be all about the open class bikes. They could definitely run massive pace. The 2 hybrids developed by Janeman Bezuidenhout and David Stratum saw clear air early on, but they also saw mechanicals early on. A collapsed hub for David Stratum going a little bit too wild through the tech saw him park his bike early on lap number 1. A similar fate befell Janeman Bezuidenhout. So those 2 big dogs were out. They still did enough though to score 5 and 6 points. Mr. Consistency, taking so many 3rd places and a very rare 2nd place at the previous rounds, Rion Dick this time around had to settle for 4th place. But he will still stay in the championship hunt. His numbers have brought him home every single time. He is the one rider who has been inside of the top 4 all the way through the game. And that will see him still challenge for a top 3 in the championship. Stefan Ferreira has been really improving nicely, enjoying his new machine, making the decision to go up into a new bike going forward into the Q2 Championship for 2021, and a 3rd place this time around also sees him jump way up in the championship order. He may in fact be able to challenge Rian Dick for the number 3 spot come the end of play. Second place and a mature head and a very professional approach to the second half of the championship. CD Goosen, the reigning champion coming out of the Q2s, has been doing what he had to do. With 1 win and what will be now 4 second places, sees him in command of the championship with his closest rivals having problems on the day. CD Goosen made mincemeat of the track. Second place, knowing that he didn't have to go for the win. He simply had to bring the fast KTM SPX machine home. Second place would feel like a win for CD as he extended in his championship hopes. With just 2 rounds to go, he may be able to go and be a double champ. Hannes Simon, who hasn't been quad racing in the last couple of years, also rolled out a box fresh hybrid. Not too much development on this machine. This is the first time it rolled out in anger. And the first time it rolled all the way to the top of the charts. Not a player in the championship, but out there to see what he can do on a brand new machine. The multiple former champion Hannes Simon had a perfect run. After the demise of Bezuidenhout and Stratum, he made mincemeat of the field and hammered the nail to see the checkers at Delmas. Hannes, welcome back to the top step. It's like you've never left it, eh?
Look, today was one of those days again. Everything just went right. I'm on my brand new EMD 690. It's a quad that we built ourselves in Centurion, South Africa. Use the KTM 690 motor, and it's absolutely a blast to race it.
A couple of these guys have had a go at that, but I see they're parked on the sideline, so this thing held together pretty good.
Yeah, look, reliability is always the key to winning any race, and then obviously just spin it to win it.
Tell me about that last lap. You and Henny were going out kind of in each other's pockets, and then you must have passed John somewhere out in that lap.
Yeah, I was actually gentleman and showed Henny to go first. What a mistake. I was in his dust for the whole lap. Unfortunately, he broke down about 2Ks back, so he'll be in eventually.
CD, you've been looking for a good result in the championship. The early part of the season, you were playing the championship game. Now you're going out for those big wins. It's a second place today, but it must feel like a win.
It does feel like a win, Matt. It's really a good feeling, and to know that I caught up with the leaders in the last 2 laps, showing that I still have consistency was really a good feeling.
X-ray vision's working good as well, because that dust was bad, man.
Yes, the dust was so badly. In the first 2 laps, you couldn't even see like your hand in front of your helmet. It was so bad.
Tell me how it feels now going into the last 2 rounds with a rock-solid lead in the championship.
It feels amazing. Hopefully I can do a double win on the championship, and that would be really outstanding for me.
Hannes then on top. Will he be a spoiler in the championship for the last 2 rounds? Tune in to find out. Gerson, though, extends in his championship lead with his second place ahead of Ferreira, Dick, Besadenhout and Stratham. It seems like it's all going the way of the goose. Final gate of the day, and it was the Quad 1s, the Q1 450 Premier class that went out of the queue early, and they were the first guys to suffer some mechanicals. Rudolf Senekes on the Can-Am, unfortunately, having to bow out of this one. Keenan Hammond also only completing 2 laps of the race before blowing a rear shock. Remember, this is one of the championship standout guys. The championship at the moment coming into this round was between himself and Henny Macau Jr. With a low finish for Keenan Hammond, could this be the end of his championship charge, or could he turn it all around in the last 2 rounds? 2 low results on the season could be his undoing. But at the same time, a lot of other people are having their own issues. Tinus Kotze gets a strong finish in the number 5. Remember, there's a couple of Hondas that have come out of nowhere in 2020 and 2021. This is one of them as well. And Kotze will be happy on the L13 to record that number 5 spot. He may actually be breaking his way now inside of the top 5 for the championship. Up the road from him are the guys that have constantly sat inside the top 4 or 5 for the series. Christian Ferreira, and in fact the entire Ferreira clan, are sitting inside the top 4 in all of their respective categories. Christian Ferreira bringing home another solid ride. He did lose a lap on the day, but he still scored enough points to bring home a number 4 finish, and it is all about in quad racing, especially on a track like this, to start and finish. Doesn't matter what else happens, because everyone else is having a rough day as well. John Aylward has had a rough day of it. This was the 3rd time his Yamaha motor let go, and it may be the undoing of his championship as well. Still, it all happened on the final lap of the event, and the L88, who was in line to take his first ever GXCC win, once again had to park it on the sideline. That's going to see him now have to fight tooth and nail to stay inside the top 3 for the championship. 3rd place was the best that he could do coming out of Delmas. He's got 2 more rounds to figure out the sweet spot. Stefanus Muller is starting to improve as well. Another rider who brings it home every single time. He's been a little bit of a revelation in the second half of this season. Definitely got the setup perfect on his racing Can-Am machine, and now he records one of his highest ever finishes, not only in the Q1s but also in the overalls. The C445 of Muller is on the up and up. And even though his bike let go in spectacular fashion, this is another hybrid. Henny Macau Jr. coming into this round with a slender lead on the championship, remains in the championship lead after having to physically push his quad across the line. The engine let go 4 kilometers before the end of his event, and the big farm kid simply put it on his shoulder and trapped across the line. Henny Macau Jr. may just get away with this one. He's got a couple of weeks to rebuild the bike, but he still goes down as the winner of the Q1s in Delmas. At the three-quarter marker of the championship, Delmas could be the one that decides who is on top. Henny Macau Jr. taking a spectacular win, even with a blown-up bike, ahead of Muller, Aylwood, Ferreira, Kotze. Hammond down there in his lowest finish of the season in a 6th spot, ahead of Sonicus. But what a story. A lot of bikes need big repairs before we go forward into round number 6. So that wraps up Delmas for the quads and the juniors. Tune in next week as we get ready to go forward into the stacked gates of the pro motorcycle categories. The quads and juniors know what they've got to do to get ready for round number 6. This GXCC racing action powered by Dunlop was brought to you by SPX Logistics, Dunlop, RME, Bearings and Transmission, and driven by the Bikers Warehouse.
So as you can see, a lot of the championships have been blown wide open, in particular the quad classes. The Q1s and the Q2s are still up for grabs. Normally, with 2 rounds to go, you can see the title contenders starting to stretch away. That certainly is the case for CD Gerson on the SPX Fast Racing KTM in the Q2s. But in the Q1s, it is definitely anyone's game at the moment. And a lot of riders still looking for their first win off that gate. A couple of repeat champions possibly being able to set themselves up into the rest of the situations. For the juniors, you can see the kids are well on their way. A couple of standouts who are starting to stretch as well. But now we come into 2 rounds to go. Remember, GXCCs are running a 7-round championship. There is 1 throwaway. And the rules of throwaway is you have to have ridden off the line, entered, and ridden across the start line to be able to throw that away. So some guys are going to be throwing away a 2nd place, which feels horrible. You work so hard for that, and you're going to be throwing away that. But you must remember, if 2nd place is their worst result, that means they've been winning every other event. For the rest of the guys, sometimes like Mikey Pentecost in the pro bikes that we'll be talking about next week, he gets to throw away a very small number, and that was because of his low finish at round number 1, because since then, he's been winning absolutely everything. But we'll talk about the pros, because that's going to be our next edit going forward into next week, so that will be on the next Hollywood. Coming up next week, me and the lads from LiveX are going to be rolling up to the next round of the Farm Jams. This is going to be an absolute perler. It's going to be out there at the Middleburg Dam. It is going to be a more open flowing version of the Farm Jams. They've been quite slow and technical this time around. It's a different format that the guys are going for, and I actually really enjoy it. It's kind of somewhere in between the GXCCs and the EWXCs, so you kind of have to be an all-round biker. So I love the format of the Farm Jams. I love the vibe up there as well. See a lot of different faces as well that you don't see at a couple of other rounds. So it's always fun to talk to new people and new blood as well. So get those entries in, guys. We can't wait to get up there. I'll be rolling up there on Friday to go and check out the track, try and get a look and feel of how it's running. But standard option for the Farm Jams is always going to be round about a 30K for the big loop and round about a 10 to 12K, depending on what the terrain is for the juniors. So see you guys out there. And then, of course, we'll come back and we'll go into the next edit. Just a word to the wise as well. You can see on the Hollywood Hills branding, we picked up last month a new sponsor, which is Insane Renovations. These guys do a lot of modifications to houses, a lot of restructuring, but they really do specialize in waterproofing, damp proofing, and things like that. That is their core, but they pretty much do everything. So we are not too far away from the rainy season. Check those roofs, guys. And if you need to do a lick of paint up the top and do a bit of resealing and check out any of the damp proofing, give these guys a call. They're going to be running specials throughout the next month and the following month as well. But of course, by the end of November, we're going to be way deep into the rain. So they said they're going to be running rock and roll specials. So get hold of Ty on this number. Ty will come out there, quote you guys on the job, and then you can see what you can do. But it's almost rainy season, guys. Put those hats on your roofs as well as on your heads. For now, we're going to sign off, get ourselves ready to go forward into the pro motorbike edit from the GXCC round number 5 in Delmas. And straight after that, we'll go forward into editing Farm Jam. Get those entries in, guys. We'll see you out there on the line as always. Laters.